once you don't see land, it messes with your mind. It's just horizon line. It's just water and air. It rocked our boat so much that you couldn't tell whether we were actually moving. We really had to trust our compass. We had to trust our GPS. You just have to trust each other, and we did.
Julie, first off, welcome back.
Thank you.
How do you feel?
Oh, I feel fantastic. Feels great to be on dry land. Feels good I love being in West Michigan because this is the place and these are the people who I love. So it's great to be back with people who supported me and back with my family, back making connections with my rowing friends, and it feels good. And I feel like physically I feel so much better than I thought I would. You know, I thought it would take me a little bit longer to physically acclimate back to things because lots of who had done ocean rows said, oh, you're just tired all the time. Like they've said, I had to take 3 naps during the day. I could do something and then I would just get wiped out. And I could do one more thing and I get wiped out. And I feel pretty good. You know, I can stay up all day. I get a good night's sleep. I'm still dreaming about rowing. I'm not sure how long my dreams are going to be about rowing an ocean. So that'll be interesting. But
you mentioned off camera that the only way to be prepared for an ocean row is to finish an ocean row. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that happened out there that you wouldn't even have thought to prepare for?
So we had, a year before, we had monthly webinars with World's Toughest Row, and they are very well trained in ocean rows. They have been doing this for a couple decades. And so we felt very good about getting direction from them and learning from them. They had former rowers who would come on and they would tell you things. And so we did in our trainings, we prepared for things. But I would say some of the things that we had 3 auto helms, which is an auto tiller. You hook it to your tiller and your rudder so that you don't have to hand steer. But all 3 of them went wonky at one time or another during the trip. I had mentioned off camera too that part of what I encountered when I was rowing, not only was I seasick, only thank goodness for 2 days, but I had a lot of acid reflux from the meat that doesn't rehydrate well in hiking food, the dehydrated foods, which no one said anything about, so we wouldn't have known. It didn't affect everybody, but it did affect me. The conditions, you're never really prepared for what the ocean will give you. And we had maybe a day and a half of absolutely flat water, which you would think, hey, flat water, this is great. But there's no wind and very little current, or the current's not going with you. So you are rowing through what feels like hardening cement. And you're maybe not even doing a knot, 1 knot. And so I think the fact that the weather changed every 10 minutes, we have a joke in Michigan where, hey, if you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes. And that's true. If you don't like the ocean, wait 5 minutes, because we could be in these beautiful swells that were moving our boat along, and then all of a sudden the whole ocean would change, and we would be rocking port to starboard, and we would be rocking bow to stern. So there was never a time when you could get purchase on your oar, where you could row. It was very frustrating. So I think just not being prepared, even though we trained in the ocean, not really being prepared for all the ocean was going to give us, I think was that. You can't really train to be dehydrated and have lack of sleep, but 2 weeks in, you really know what it feels like to move around being slightly dehydrated and having not enough sleep. Mm-hmm. They say specifically don't train for that, but you acclimate and your body just works and does it. But I think those are the things that you're not really prepared for. We were very fortunate because a lot of teams would come back and say, hey, be prepared to have some contention on the boat, to not always get along, to have, be prepared and be ready, be mentally and emotionally ready for there to be some discourse and for some dialogue. And we really didn't have that on our boat. We were really I think we were all really well prepared, and we all had the same goal in mind. And so not until that last week and a half did we really have any issues on the boat. And we were really fortunate. So, yeah.
One of the things that I think a lot of people would be intimidated by, to the point where doing this would be a non-starter, is that feeling of you get out there and there's no land.
Oh, yeah.
Once you reach that point and it sort of solidifies that, hey, we're all out here alone and all we have is us. Like, what is that moment like?
Well, it took about 2.5 days for us to not see the California coast anymore because of the mountains. And it was actually a little demoralizing to wake up on that third morning and still see the mountains. I'm like, we have been doing this for 48 hours and we're still not off the coast enough. But then once you don't see land, it messes with your mind. You get a little bit of that Tom Hanks Castaway feeling, like you're going to start talking to a volleyball. So we made a point to ground ourselves in what day it is, what time it is, what date it is. We always reminded each other, okay, it is Wednesday, July 8, or whatever it might be, just so that we could ground ourselves in that. And we were fortunate enough, and all the boats now, modern boats obviously, we have GPS, we had Starlink, we have sat phones. We could watch ourselves because we had the YB tracker. We could watch ourselves go across the ocean, so we knew we were going the right way. But it's just horizon line. It's just water and air. And so there were times when the ocean was so, I don't want to say violent, because the ocean does what the ocean does, but it rocked our boat so much that you couldn't tell whether we were actually moving. I mean, we were moving our oars, but was the boat moving? Was it going in the right direction? We really had to trust our compass. We had to trust our GPS. And we had to trust the tracker to know that we were going in the right direction. That was disconcerting, And we, obviously, the four of us, we had lots of inside jokes, lots of times to laugh. So we would make jokes about, well, someone's not making it, someone's going overboard, but truly we were just joking around,
Yeah.
When you realize, and you know this is an unassisted row, it is just the four of you, and so you really have to. People say about like flat water rowing. If you've ever read the book Boys in the Boat or talked to anybody who's a rower, they say believe in the boat. It doesn't mean that you believe in the structural integrity of the vessel that you are in. It means that you believe in the people who are in the boat with you. You have to trust them implicitly. And we trusted each other. We knew, there was a lot of grace given and a lot of grace received on that boat. You just have to trust each other. And we did. It was a struggle. I don't think any day was really easy, but we were there for each other 100%. And that's what made the trip, that's what made it so rewarding when you finally got there, because you did it as a team. Not one person on the boat could have done it themselves, but you did it as a team.
You talked about giving each other grace and the fact that nobody does a race like this without contention on the boat. What did doing this teach you about teamwork?
One of the things that it taught me was that to value every aspect of what somebody brings to a team. So we had strong rowers and we had not so strong rowers, but rowing wasn't 100% of what we were doing. So even if you were a even if you didn't have the longest stroke or the strongest, you weren't getting the most purchase from on the blade. You were a navigator, you were a steerer, you were making meals, you were cleaning dead fish off the deck. Everybody came with their gifts and talents, and they really worked well together. Our team did anyway, and it made me look deeper into each person and not just value them as a rower, but value them for all the gifts that they brought. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, because they did that for me too.
I love that. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Let's see. The last time I talked to you and Susan, I don't remember who had said it, or maybe both of you had at different times, but you kind of expected this journey to change you in some way. Has it? And if so, how?
So there were people who said to me, "Oh, this is a life-changing experience." I didn't see it. I didn't go into it as a life-changing experience, because for me, my salvation, my marriage, having 2 kids, those are life-changing experiences. And those are things that I will have for the rest of my life. I will have memories from this, and I don't regret a second of doing it, even though I may never do an ocean again. I don't regret it. I'm so glad that I did it. But I think for me, the biggest change, if there is a change, or the biggest benefit, I guess, to doing it, was learning how to, and I think I'm a grateful person. I have an exercise of writing down things that I'm grateful for. But just that, the gratitude for those small things that maybe as modern Western Americans, we take for granted. Having dry clothes, being able to stretch out fully when you sleep, which we weren't able to do for 40 days. Eating food that you like, even because we had to eat for calories, and we had to eat things that our tummy could ingest and digest, but it wasn't always our favorite. I think connecting with friends, it was the 4 of us, and we had WhatsApp. We could have spoken to people more often than we did, because we had Starlink every once in a while when we had our connection. But I think as a group, we kind of chose to be in the moment more than, that was a choice that we made as a team, to be there and to be in the moment. So we didn't really use our technology that much. And I think that was to our benefit. Yeah, so just going through a week and a half of cloudy days, because we didn't have a sunny day maybe till week 3. We were in our cold weather, foul weather gear for 3 weeks at least. And it was cold and it was cloudy. And then when the sun came out, it was just being grateful. Oh, beautiful sun, the warmth, the sun that charges our batteries, the starry nights, which were amazing on the ocean. That was probably my favorite thing, was the beautiful starry nights, because it was just, it was quiet. So I think just simple things, recognizing simple things and being grateful for them.
Sounds like you had a renewed appreciation for some of the little things that people take for granted. Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. A renewed appreciation is a beautiful way to put it. Yep.
You and Susan had talked about being 2 women in your 60s, not being afraid to do something totally insane, and hopefully, along with the charities that you were raising money for, inspiring other women, or anyone really, to, if you want to do something, do it. What has that been like on this side of the journey, now that it's complete?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, and Susan's daughter, I think gave her a quote or said something. It says, "Do something that scares you every day." Every day do something that scares you. Thankfully, I was never petrified. Like I wasn't scared or afraid any time that we were on the ocean. There were days that were a little more tenuous than others, especially when the swells were really big or the waves were, higher than usual. But I think that knowing who we are and why we were doing it made it easier to get through some of those rougher days. And now being back on land and having people come up to me and saying, like, that is amazing. I could have never done that. I don't know how you did that. That, like, you're a superhero, you're a super mom, whatever. It's a little humbling and kind of overwhelming to me because I kind of just did what I was supposed to do every day. We kind of laughed and said, we didn't row 2,800 miles. We rowed 1 mile 2,800 times. You just kind of get up and you do what you have to do, to make that day work. But looking back, if I step outside myself, I think I just rowed across an ocean, and that ocean was unrelenting, and that was kind of tough. And so I do have a story, and I'm excited to share that with other people. People are excited to hear my story, which I find kind of interesting. It's just like, it was just a really tough 40-day vacation. It's like not everybody would choose that. That's kind of how I chose to spend my summer. But I am humbled and overwhelmed by the number of people who want to hear about how it went and what we did and how we overcame obstacles and stuff. And luckily, nothing traumatic happened to us. Before we left, somebody said, hey, when can we expect the documentary? And I'm like, oh no, they only do documentaries if something, horrible happens, like the boat splits apart or a shark attack or something. So we didn't want any of that. But I'm just thrilled to be able to share with, like you said, like girls, women, athletes, older people, like senior citizens. I'm 61. I don't really get a senior citizen discount yet, but I'm close. But I'm excited to share that, being brave isn't the absence of fear, right? Courage is doing it when you're still fearful. And so people who are still fearful of something, you can still overcome that. You can still be brave. Our Erin, who does not like deep water, she was our skipper, and she has wanted to do this has been her dream for over 4 years to do this. And when we had to scrape the barnacles off the bottom of the boat, I volunteered because I'm a fish. Like, it didn't bother me that there was 4,500 meters of water underneath me. I didn't really think about that. I'm like, oh, it's water. Jump in, scrape, go underwater. Like, I love water. She jumped in and scraped the barnacles to overcome her fear, not because there was an absence of fear. And she did it, and we were so proud of her. That was just amazing that she overcame her fear, that she felt she trusted us enough to stay. She knew that we had her. She was hooked on, she was knotted in. We were watching her every step of the way, and she got to overcome her fear. So if I can show people how to be brave in the midst of fear and how to overcome that, that's fantastic. Whether it's a little thing or a big thing, I think that's really cool.
One thing that really stuck out to me when you guys landed, you get off the boat, you kind of get assisted through the water, and then there's this beautiful moment on shore where you jump into your husband's arms and you guys embrace, you kiss. What was that moment like for you?
Well, for me, I mean, it wasn't my why. It wasn't why I was doing the trip. But as we got closer to Hawaii, I knew he was there. When I knew he landed on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, I couldn't wait to get there. I mean, my husband is my life partner, he's my best friend, and we hadn't seen each other. I didn't have any family in Monterey to see me launch. So I was the odd person out, that I didn't have anyone in Monterey. other of our team members did. So I hadn't seen my family since May 24th when I flew out for the pre-race week. And so it had been almost 2 months that I had been away from family. And it wasn't just my husband, but he kind of represented home. He represented family. He represented my sons and my 2 daughters-in-law and my siblings and everybody that means home to me. So that was a pretty special moment. And I was at, other people had 2 or 3 people. One of our team members had like 17 family members there in Hawaii. And I was really glad that I had won. It was okay. I didn't have to share that moment with anyone else. I didn't have to split myself into 17 pieces to answer a bunch of questions and to hug everybody. My husband and I could just have that moment together.
What have the last few weeks been like back on land?
It's been, so during my trip, especially during the last 2 weeks, I kind of told myself, and I shared with my WhatsApp group, I said, when I get back, I'm gonna need to set up some boundaries because I'm a person who doesn't sit well. So I stuff my calendar full of things that need to get done. And I was very intentional and very thoughtful about the things that I wanted to do. I have the blessing of being an elementary school teacher, so I didn't have to jump right back into a job. I don't have to go back for a couple more weeks. So I had the privilege of getting up late, making myself a hot cup of coffee, which is wonderful. I spent 40 days with no caffeine at all. So having that hot cup of coffee in the morning was really nice. I have a renewed sense of staying in relationship with friends and family. And so I've spent the last couple of weeks being intentional about walking with a friend, meeting somebody for breakfast, spending time with my cousins who came over last weekend from the east side of the state. And I am trying very hard not to fill my time with things so that I can have time for people. And just, I guess, maybe that renewed appreciation for small things. When you get used to having your family around you, my husband and I are blessed. Both our boys live in Grand Rapids, which people my age, like I talk to other people and they don't have their children in Grand Rapids. Susan, her kids are in Ann Arbor and Oregon and Washington. And so, I have nieces and nephews who live in London and who live in LA and live in New York. So we're really blessed to have them there, but I don't want to take that for granted. My in-laws are still living. They're 90 this year. So I want to spend the time with them that I have. So I just went over there and bought flowers and brought some flowers for them and chatted with them. And just taking that time to be intentional to build those and build on relationships, I think is the most important. Kind of forgetting about things and remembering more people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, reflections that we didn't get to talk about yet?
I think one of the things that was really important to me is people always ask me about my training before I went. They say, how did you train for this? How did you train for this? I've been an athlete because I've been rowing for 16 years and I've been into fitness and I've been an athlete. So it didn't really take different training physically for me. I did a little bit more mobility and flexibility because I knew that I would be on a boat that tipped back and forth. So I'm very, very grateful for the staff at Power Strength who helped me with mobility and flexibility, the physical part of it. For me, this last year was more about like emotional, spiritual training. I'm a Christian, so I wanted to have God's word in my heart. I had my kiddos from my Christian elementary school help me memorize Bible verses. So when I was out there and it might have been a long, dark night, or we were going through a real frustrating time, just to have a foundation, that was kind of my mental, spiritual foundation. And I'm really glad that I did that. I'm really glad that I spent the time doing that. And that my students were invested enough in my trip that they helped me do that. Because it is, sure, it's a physical game. 12 hours a day, you are on the oars. 84 hours a week, I was rowing on those oars. And it's exhausting. And I slept through a lot of alarm clocks because I was so exhausted. And Susan showed me a lot of grace when I slept through my alarm clock. But a lot of it is just having the mental capacity to wake up every day and get back on the oars, to say, okay, I am going to step through that hatch and I'm going to be a team player. I'm going to step through that hatch and I'm going to forget maybe how sad I was yesterday or how much I cried the night before, or and really be there for whatever teammate needs me. So I think the mental toughness is as important, or maybe even more important than the physical part of it.
You talked about your faith, and it doesn't sound like your faith ever wavered and would not have regardless of this trip. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if having gone on this journey strengthened or perhaps changed the way that faith presents. Did it have any bearing on it at all?
It did, in that it's interesting because when you grow up in the faith, as I did, people will say, and they'll quote the Bible incorrectly and say, God doesn't give you anything more than what you can handle. It's a misunderstanding of a Bible verse. But if you never got more than you could handle, then why would you need God? Because you can handle everything by yourself, right? So that is a misunderstanding of the Bible verse. But when I was out there, you don't really understand until you are completely at the whim of the other parts of creation that God made, that you realize like how powerful he is, how powerful he made other things, and how little control you have over things. I think I was able to control only what I can control. I couldn't control my teammates. I couldn't control the weather. There was a lot of things not under my control, out of my control. And so at one point, one of my teammates, in frustration, because we all frustrated, we were all, using language that was colorful and angry at some things.
Yeah.
Before we left, Karsten, who owns World's Toughest Row, said, "The ocean will throw everything it has at you." And that was not an understatement. And at one point, probably during the third or fourth week, when we had no purchase on the oars, it felt like we were bobbing around in this, we were bobbing around in this vast ocean, but it felt like we were directionless, and it didn't feel like we were going in the way that we wanted to, and we were still fighting the waves and fighting the current and fighting the winds. And one of my teammates just yelled out in frustration, "It feels like God has abandoned us." And I didn't say anything because I just kind of waited on that. And it gave me time to think about that. And I think what really solidified in my mind and in my heart about my faith was that God created everything to do what it's supposed to do. He created the Pacific Ocean to do exactly what the Pacific Ocean was doing, whether we were on it or not, every single day. Sometimes it was calm. Most of the time it was pretty violent. It was pretty up and down. But I didn't waver in my faith because I thought God had abandoned us because the ocean was rough. Like, the Pacific Ocean obeys God. It obeys its creator. So it was just doing what it normally does. I don't know why. Even as a science teacher, I don't fully understand mitochondria in our cells, but I know it's important. Mm-hmm. And it does what it does because that's what it was designed to do. And so it gave me a greater appreciation for how things work and move within our world, like outside of human control, outside of what humans do. And I think it's something that I never really thought about before. I was never in a situation where I had to think about it. You know, we didn't have any shark attacks. We got to see whales, we got to see dolphins, we got to see a lot of birds. I have no idea why the flying fish would jump into our boat and willingly die. They were just jumping into our boat and they would die because they didn't have any water to breathe. But it was interesting to watch all of those things and to watch it from a perspective of, I'm a human being in the midst of all of this creation, which I can't control. And it was frustrating at times, but actually even more freeing, I think, than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Some people ask, what was the thing that you delighted in most when we got on land?
Okay.
And I think, and our Bloom Social, who did an amazing job. They're here in West Michigan.
Yeah.
They did an amazing job with our social media, and they posted at one point what were the things that we were most looking forward to, not necessarily in Hawaii, but being on land. You know, one person said standing up straight. You know, we didn't walk more than 3 steps for 40 days.
Yeah.
And to figure, like, your body is designed to be upright, and we weren't upright for 40 days. Somebody said to have a flushing toilet. Somebody, you know, and I was really looking forward to having ice in a drink, like, because we drank tepid water every single day. Every day, every shift. That's how we hydrated, with just maybe some electrolytes, but whatever. So the fact that I could stretch out in a bed, again, I think that renewed appreciation for the things that we have, being dry after a shower and then putting on dry clothes, I'm like, these clothes just go on and they don't stick and they don't get all twisted and they're not wet and they don't stink. You know, our cabin pretty much smelled like the inside of a junior high sports shoe for 40 days.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So just, again, having those comforts of home that you didn't kind of give you gratitude for what we have. Yeah.
That made me think of a follow-up that I have. The press release that was originally sent out, and I didn't get to ask you guys about this initially, it was described as about the same dimensions as a coffin. And you mentioned you did not get a chance to sprawl out. So, like, how were you positioned when you were sleeping or trying to sleep?
Yeah. So in our cabin, I would say the sleeping area, minus where we had our personal things along the side, where we had our things stored along the side, it was about the size of, you know, like when you go to it was the size of a bistro table. Like you go out with a friend or something to a restaurant and you're at a 2-top or a 4-top. That's about as much space as we had to sleep. The bow cabin, where Jack and Aaron were, they had a little bit more length, but they're also taller than we are. So Susan and I were in the smaller cabin. Most of the time we slept in the fetal position, because even though on either side there were what we call footwells, you know, there was a little bit more space, things had to be stored under there.
Yeah.
And because we had all of the navigation and the rudder and the tiller in our cabin, it shortened that a little bit. And so yeah, we spent most of our sleeping position was in the fetal position, crunched up into, I would say, I don't know, 3.5 by 3.5, maybe. 3 feet by 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And then anything was a pillow.
Yeah.
My coat, her sweater, a sleeping bag.
Your hand.
Yeah, your hand. Yep. Yeah. A bag of snacks could be a pillow. Whatever, just raised our head up enough to give us some sleep.
Yeah.
So you get really creative, and all of those things that you think are important don't matter. You know, people said, "Are you going to take your own pillow? Are you going to take an inflatable?" Nope. You just use what's there. I think for me it was a little bit easier because I'm the second of 7 children, so I'm just used to, like, whatever's there, I'll use it. I didn't grow up as a princess, so I didn't need any of those things. But none of us did. All of us just used what we had and, made do with what we had.